never saw it. You would even say it glows. I love the other reindeer. Used to laugh and call him names. They never let Rudolph join in any reindeer games. And one foggy Christmas Eve, oh, Santa came to say, can you take me higher to a place where snowmen see?
Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here with the Fridaze here with the Occult Rejects. The host, Nick, from the Occult Rejects. Thanks for joining me here, bud.
Of course. Thank you. Always appreciate coming on, man. Always have a good time.
Yeah, I like our Friday night jam sessions. And tonight we got John Kirwin, author John Kirwin, joining us here, talking some Mandela effects. Welcome, John. Appreciate you coming back to Operation GCD here.
Yeah. Mandela. You got a little Southern drawl, JJ, or is that just me?
It's yeah, a little bit.
A little Mandela.
West Virginia Southern. It's not exactly
right.
Southern.
I thought I picked up that a little bit.
Folks consider it from the South.
Sounds good. Well, any way you slice it, man. I'm psyched to be here.
You're down in South Carolina. Is that correct?
I flew north for the winter. I'm up by the Canadian border. It's like 5 degrees here.
You want? So you're supposed to do that in the summertime and go south in the winter.
Well, I figured I'd get out on a 40-acre ranch off the beaten trail. So if we have really bad social chaos, it's going to be on, not around here.
So there you go. Yep. Found some nice remote areas up in the Northeast, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might. I mean, things might be rosy. We might be in for a period of renaissance and prosperity. I mean, if Trump does the stuff he's saying he's going to do, it's going to be incredible. They want to get rid of 80% of the U.S. government. So who knows?
Sure.
They're trying to release a bird flu thing now. So who knows?
It seems to be the start of a new era here in America, John. I think everything's coming so quick and fast right now that folks don't really know up from down. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think that is really going at more of an exponential rate as time goes on. But I like some of Trump's new ideas. He wants to make Canada the 51st state and go by Greenland. These are all, but he's all very rooted in the Knights Templar tales. These are old Templar territories, so he seems to be wanting to reclaim those back.
I mean, there's a million narratives. You can't really know what's going on. And, the false light narrative where he's part of the same team, but he's coming in to vanquish like the serpent eating its own tail. And all of that, has potential, but who knows? Time will tell. If he implements half the stuff they're talking about, we're going to be prosperous. They're getting rid of so much of the tyranny and all of that stuff. But, like Elon is a prop. There's no way Elon is running 9 companies. Right. He's number 10 in some video game in the whole world. That takes a lot of time. He's got 9 kids, and now he's going to come in and be in full-time in the government. It's ridiculous.
I would agree with you on that assessment for sure.
He can't be real. So I'm not
really how does he work with all the tweeting he does?
He can't. It's not. He's a prop. In fact,
or it's a bot.
I have pictures of an Elon, younger Elon is this different guy. Vivek is a different guy. I have 2 pictures of Vivek. The first one, his skin is 2 shades lighter. They also have several Trumps. And so what we're seeing is a show with masked people, and we're just like, basically it's either the good guys are controlling the show or the bad guys are controlling the show.
Sure.
Or the good guys that are actually bad guys. So that would be the false light narrative. It's really complicated.
And all of these things are subject to getting Mandela affected, right?
Well, that's a whole nother level. But I heard that's right up your guys' alley, huh? Talking about esoteric, bizarre stuff, right?
Oh, of course. I'm all about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed our last conversation back a little over a year ago when we did a conversation on your earlier Mandela Effect stuff. So I'm very curious to see where you've taken some of those thoughts. Before we get into some of those details, John, where What can you introduce where folks can find some more of your information before we start unpacking it?
Yeah, I'm on Rumble now because we can say what we want. We're at Wake Up or Else on Rumble, and a lot of content still on YouTube. So Wake Up or Else on Rumble and YouTube, and now we're on X as well, and then wakeuporelse.com. That's where you can get my books. I got 2 books, and they're both free because we're a ministry. And like I was telling the guys in the pre-show, imagine if you go to church and you got to pay $15 to get in to hear the sermon. That would rub me the wrong way, right?
Right.
So I'm doing this by faith, and I just live off of donations, so it's working out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you've included in the second book, because you definitely had some good examples for me the last time we spoke, as far as really some compelling examples that I'm quite convinced there's something going on here with these Mandela effects. What it is, I think is I have some ideas, but I think there's a lot of factors that could be playing into these. But you sound like you have some you've narrowed down some of those factors to have a better understanding of the core concepts of what's going on, right? Is that correct?
Well, undoubtedly. I mean, my book's like 400 pages. It's undeniable.
Sure.
But I'm not winning any popularity contests, because suggesting that the devil's changing the Bible is like suggesting that God fell off his throne. But what Christians don't realize is it's God is the one that's calling for this thing. It's not the devil getting the upper hand on God. Give me a break. And like in Amos 8:11, there's a passage where God says, I'm going to send a famine into the land, but it's not a famine of bread. It's a famine of the word. And men will seek the word and they won't find it. Well, there's one example of where God used removing his word as a judgment. Then I got 5 other examples of that in the Bible where he withdrew his word as a judgment. So what I'm proposing isn't heretical. It's not outrageous. And
there's precedent, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there's a lot of parts of Christianity that don't believe that the Bible teaches that Scripture is preserved. In other words, what I'm suggesting that the Bible's changing is not heretical. Oh yeah, large tracts of Orthodox Christianity do not embrace that the Bible teaches that it's preserved. Now, what they do say is that we've observed over time that God has ordered circumstances to preserve his word. That's called providential preservation. But as far as the Scriptures actually teaching that the Scriptures are preserved, there's many Orthodox denominations that don't believe that. What it does say is that the word is preserved. And this is really the thing that we've discovered, we've learned, we've been shown, is that the term Scripture and the term word are not the same, but they're conflated together most of the time. And that's where the confusion is, because the promises are promising that the word is preserved, not the Scriptures. So that's pretty much the big kahuna right there.
And what's the biggest, like, how do you really differentiate between what the interpretation of the word is versus the Scriptures? Like, what's the biggest thing you point to as far as emphasizing that point? Because I imagine some folks come at you telling you that's semantics, right?
Yeah, it is. It is semantics, absolutely.
Sure.
And basically it's sloppy doctrine. Well, without getting into detail, I spend a lot of time in the book proving that the Scriptures and the Word aren't the same. So
is it a translation thing that happened during translations of the Bible? Is that what occurred?
No, it's just a matter of going like the Gospel of John, right? The Gospel of John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." So that statement is one of the clearest times that the Bible defines what the Word is. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." So there's one definition where the Word is not the Bible. The Word is God. And all of our life, we've been told, I hold in my hand the Word of God, the unchanging Word of God. No, what you actually hold is the Scriptures that contain the words of God.
Sure.
Now, when God gave these words to the original authors, That's the inspired word, and it is immutable. In other words, it won't change. But the judgment, like I mentioned, Amos 8, made the word inaccessible. So even though the word or the decrees still remain in effect, that doesn't mean you have access to them. Like right now, there's over 1,600 languages still in use that don't have a Bible in their language. So even though they're still under the authority, 1,640, I think it is.
I know there was that many languages.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
I thought maybe it was like, I don't know, 100?
Right. Maybe 150, right?
Really is Babylon, huh?
1,600. I looked it up recently. So what that means is that those people don't have access to the word, but they're still liable to it. The Ten Commandments still applies to them. So my point is that the word can become inaccessible, but it doesn't mean it's been changed or done away with. It's still in full force. But the scriptures can change.
Okay.
That's really where the difference lies. Once you accept that, then the evidence is easy to accept.
And you've caught numerous changes here in the scriptures. That's correct, John?
Oh, I'm sure, probably.
Oh, for sure. And basically what I've done is I've isolated what I call universal changes, which are in every translation. Because the number one argument.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, people always say,
which versions of the Bible are we talking? King James, or this is all different versions?
This is every Bible.
Right.
There isn't a Bible where you can go and find this and it won't be in there.
That's what I'm tracking. I just want to make sure we emphasize that because we already had a couple of questions kind of in that same department.
The reason that's so important is because most people will say, well, John, I can clear this up. You're just confused by different versions.
Right.
All right, well, explain that to me if it's in every version. How am I confused? What that would mean is you'd have to be able to go find a version where it's not there.
Sure.
All right, and you can't. So, for instance, Luke 19:27 says, now this is Jesus talking, but those mine enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. I call this Jihad Jesus.
Okay.
Let me read it again. Luke,
I was actually going to ask you. Can you say that one more time, please?
Luke 19:27. But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. Slit their throats.
Yeah, he wants to kill them. Kill the enemies that don't bend to him.
Most of us remember it saying, and show them before me. And my point is this: I can go. I'm doing this.
Yeah,
now.
more gentle Jesus, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. But my point is that I can go into any environment which is full of Christians and I can read this, and I am telling you, as God is my witness, it'll be the first time that every Christian in that room has heard of this. Now, I'm here to tell you that's not possible. In other words, if there was any kind of mention whether Jesus is telling his followers, hey, if these guys don't follow me, bring them here in front of me and slit their throats. I don't care if it's a parable. This is a parable, but it's coming out of Jesus' mouth. And what I'm saying is, I would say, oh, yeah, I know about that parable. No, I don't get that. This is what I get. I get this. Wait, what? Jesus is saying what? So that's proof that this is new. And again, it's in the King James 1611, all revisions, the 1769 Oxford. It's on the King James Bible on your coffee table, in every bookshelf, in every century, without exception. Then it's in the NIS, the NAV, the EAS, the ABC 123. It's in every Bible, everywhere.
I believe you, John, but just to be honest with you, you could have inserted a couple extra ABCs and 123s in there for Bibles. I wouldn't have known the difference because I didn't know there was that many different editions. I'm familiar with like the King James version and the universal one and those kind of ones, but I had no idea there's that many different versions of the Bible.
No, man, there's about 20.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, would you consider like whatever the Mormons? Do they have their own version of the Bible too? Like, is that considered?
They do King James. They do King James.
All right, but they just read.
That's why I know King James, is because the Mormons taught me King James version.
Okay, right.
I want to ask you something, if you don't mind. What do you
Yeah.
thoughts on King James? I have heard some stuff where he might have actually kind of been into the occult himself. Did you have any ever come across any stuff like that, or have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of sketchy stuff around King James. Most people believe he was gay.
Oh, I didn't even know that one.
He married a 13-year-old, didn't he?
I don't know the details, so I'm not going to try to elaborate.
Queen Anne of Norway, I believe. My ancestor brokered the marriage, Sir Patrick Vance.
I haven't studied it enough to really speak to it, but I do know a lot of people say he's gay. He was gay, but
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
It seems like, because I have studied the process where they had like 21 scholars. I mean, these dudes these guys had their A game. I mean, these guys all spoke like multiple languages. They were serious scholars. And they put this thing together, and it's the best translation from the right, original manuscripts and all that. But, this is not up for debate anymore. And I can tell you why it's not up for debate. Because the number one argument is, well, we're just misremembering. So you go like, judge not, blank, ye be judged. Does that any of that ring a bell for you guys? Like, can you fill in the blank? Judge not, blank.
Lest ye be judged.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what just came out of your mouth? I can get like a billion with a B people to say that.
Sure.
I just did an interview this morning, and the guy was 10 out of 10. He said, judge not lest you be judged. How about this one? All right. So God's running through Job's life with the Sherman tank. He's going through the meat grinder, right? And his wife is watching this, and she's like, just curse God and die. And then Job's like, shall we not receive good and evil from the Lord? And then he says the famous line, the Lord blanks, and the Lord blanks away.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
Thank you. Jordan fades back.
Even I know that.
Bro, what I'm telling you is I can get a billion people to say what you just said.
Yeah.
Everybody listening to me, if you've ever cracked the Bible or watched a movie or whatever, they always say, judge not, lest you be judged, and the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. And what I'm telling you is those two passages have never existed in that way. The first one is like this, judge not that ye be not judged. And then the second one is the Lord gave and the Lord hath taken away, is what it's always said.
That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any that doesn't even sound right in the latter example.
Now, here's where it gets really wiggy. And I'm talking Bible school presidents, I'm talking Bible scholars, the theologian dudes, the authors of 20 books. When I paint them, when I do this with them, like I just did with you, because they'll tell me the same thing. And I go, well, mathematically, I went to Chat GPT. You can do this yourself. And I put this question in. What is the probability of 5 people being given 5 fill-in-the-blanks questions like I just did with you, and they get them all of them get it wrong, but they all misremember the same way. Do you know what the probability is? 10 to the 160th power. It's 10 with 160 zeros.
Yeah, you can't even
like
really quantify that. Yeah, exactly. Way worse than that.
All right, so here, for anybody listening that wants to suggest that we're just, the human memory is not reliable and you're just misremembering. Right. No, because what you just saw with JJ is that he wasn't just misremembering, he's misremembering the same way as all of humanity. That's not the same.
That seems pretty compelling, too, when so many people remember the exact same way.
It's irrefutable.
It does seem to add quite a lot of weight to these.
Well, check out what they got to do then. This is where they jump off to. And this is what I'm saying. This is the intelligentsia. They go like this. Well, I can clear this up, John. This is just because of misquotes from pop culture. I'm telling you the truth. They try to suggest that we're being overrun by misquotes from pop culture. And I'm like, really, dude? Really? So let me get this straight. Let's say you're a preacher.
Seems improbable, right?
You go out to like Facebook and you see some guy say there is no God, are you trying to tell me that thought overcomes you subconsciously? You're not even aware of it, and then you wake up tomorrow and you're an atheist?
Sure.
That's what you're trying to tell me.
Right. Not exactly a probable scenario.
I'm just like, no, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And it's not just lay people, it's pastors. Like, I do the same thing with them.
Yeah, I mean,
it took me
the
7 years to
odds
figure
don't even
this out.
seem like it could be possible that all these people remember the same way. Like, even with putting the odds aside, it just common sense says that if all these people remember it the same way, then there's got to be something else going on. Now, here's a question from the chat there, John. Easter, is that that's in the Bible? But it was
Easter is in the book of Acts now instead of Passover, and it says they celebrated Easter. And then, but see, people that don't want to accept this, they always got a backstory. Well, Easter was there because the pagan Nero was celebrating it. No, stop. Okay, because I was in the ministry 10 years full-time, 20 years part-time, and now 8 years full-time again. So I've been in full-time ministry almost 20 years and part-time ministry 20 years. I've been in the Word for 4 decades. And what I'm telling you is that if the book of Acts referenced Easter, I would have known about it. But I just found out about that about a year ago. It's not possible.
Well, I mean, even the history of the holiday, right, is not rooted in Christianity, right? It's rooted in some pagan goddess,
what
right?
I'm relying on, this is what I'm relying on. Okay, people try to say the human memory is unreliable, but they don't really believe that. So, for instance, if you went to your aging parent and for the first time they didn't recognize you, what conclusion would you draw?
They have dementia.
All right, so let me explain what you just said. What you just said is that your opinion of the human memory is so high that you believe the human memory is so freaking reliable when it comes to vivid memories, like recognizing your child, that the only explanation for someone not being able to recognize their own child would be mental illness. In other words, why didn't you suggest that your parent was just misremembering?
Right. Now, I see what you're saying.
We can't really get our heads around that. So my point is that people don't really believe that the human memory is unreliable. You don't believe that because it isn't our experience.
Yeah, it happens a lot in like criminal cases. Folks want to use an eyewitness account when it benefits them, and not use it. They'll exclude it when they're like, I don't want to. Eyewitness accounts, they're not reliable. You know what I mean? When suddenly the eyewitness accounts go against the narrative.
I hear that too, but it's not really true either because 18 USC 3502 is testimony is admissible as evidence. So if human memory was unreliable as a source of evidence in a court of law, it would have been eliminated 50 years ago.
It wouldn't have been codified, right?
It's the number one source of evidence in the court of law.
Probably right on that.
And in the Bible, God commands us to remember 8 different times. He's not going to tell us to do something that we were incapable of doing. So, when we have, here's a great way to understand it. I'll use Nick as an example. And Nick wakes up tomorrow, and now his name is Joe. Or let's say it's similar. It's Dick. I don't like saying Dick because it sounds like
Rick.
Dick. But
how about Rick?
All right, but because it's similar, we'll go with Rick. Thank you. Okay, that's better. So you wake up and you look at your bank statements, and going back 20 years, it says Rick. And then your birth certificate, your credit cards, your driver's license, they all say Rick. Now, here's my question. This is going to bring it home, baby. Do you believe that you could convince yourself that you had just been misremembering your name your whole life?
Right.
No freaking way.
No way, dude.
Be a tough sell. Be a real tough sell.
Because you're like, bro, I know my name. Okay, shut up. I know my name. So this is where certainty hits us in the belly, right?
I was thinking like I'm stuck in some false reality before.
Well, there you go.
My name for 47 years.
That's my point. The point is that certain of these memories are so vivid that we are forced to admit that there's some unexplainable phenomenon going, whereas the rational mind is trying to say, I just did a talk yesterday, and it's called The 14 Objections of the Unconvinced. Well, you're confused by misquotes. You're confused by modernizations. You're just biblically illiterate. You're delusional. All of these attempts to put this phenomenon back into a naturalistic box. But if your name changed, you're like, I'm sorry, your argument's unconvincing. I know my name. Shut up.
Right.
That's the end of it. So that's where we are. There's millions of people now, hundreds of channels on different platforms covering this. And some of them have several 100,000 subscribers each. I've gotten 5 new a day. I've got about 8,000 subscribers.
All right.
No, nice.
So this is not.
So I like that. You condensed a list of the top 14 objections that you hear from folks.
Oh yeah. You can. I just recorded that and posted it yesterday. It's on my channel, Wake Up or Else, or Rumble.
No, and I got your. If I don't have those links already in the show notes, I'll put them in there. But I believe they're already in there.
So let's. No,
that's a good idea to kind of highlight where the critics are coming from. I'm definitely interested in listening to that.
I mean, I could talk a little bit about those, but I think your listeners might.
Whatever you want to talk about, John. No, by all means, you're on a roll. I hate to interrupt you there, so go ahead.
Well, we talked about Cliff High. So Cliff really proved himself early on, like 6 years ago. I think we mentioned this. He created this WebBot thing where he was trying to get an edge to trade stocks. And he's a linguist and a programmer.
Okay.
So he sent this spider out to listen to people's conversations in an attempt to get an edge to sell stocks, and it came back, and then he would put it through these algorithms. And what it started doing was predicting the future. And these events started happening that this web bot was telling would happen. And so I started listening to him. And like I told you guys, he predicted, or the web bot predicted, that a lake in Peru would empty out overnight. So I just wrote it down. And then like 2 months later, I'm telling you, as God is my witness, a lake in Peru emptied out overnight. And then I'm watching him, right? Then I'm like, holy mackerel. So then he said there was a cruise liner that was going to run aground on a coral reef, and he named the place. And I'm telling you, the thing ran up on the ground, just like he said. So I started buying his thing. Now, what he did was in 2009. You can look this up. It's on all the platforms. His webbot predicted that there would be a melee of UFOs. There would be a battle in the sky of UFOs, and there will be a marker that you would know when this was going to happen. And he said it's when Joe Rogan interviews Donald Trump. And the system said 39 days after that interview, you're going to have UFO battle in the skies. And look at what's happening right now. That 39th day was December 4th of this month.
Yep.
Ha! All right, so this guy, all that to say that this guy has some creds, baby. This guy.
Here we go. This is a headline of that right here, John.
There it is.
Futurists alien predictions for December 3rd. Takes off on
nailed it. I mean, I have a video from the 4th where people were shooting at these things. So it was literally to the day. Okay. It's unbelievable.
And it is pretty fascinating. I was just talking about those videos with some folks yesterday who weren't, necessarily prolific on social media and weren't really familiar with what was going on. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a big alien guy myself. I'm like, I don't think any little green men are coming down anytime soon. That kind of thing, but whatever is going on is very fascinating. There's obviously a show going on in the skies over New Jersey.
All right. Well, all that to say that this WebBot thing has some creds. So what he did was he pointed it towards the D-Wave computers, and he found that there was a very strong correlation between the number of reports of the Mandela Effect and the location of where these D-Wave computers are, like Columbia.
And where are those located?
Well, Google has one. University of California has one. There's different ones around the country. And in and around the area of where these are, there's a lot more, because his spider goes out and listens to conversations. There's a lot more activity of reported Mandela effects as you get closer to the D wave, which is fascinating.
Interesting.
If you understand what this D wave computer does or how it works. Okay, so these computers operate with, I believe, fallen angel technology, and they use.
I was about to ask you that. I was just looking this up. This is quite a situation. We bring a picture here of this of this D wave. I've never heard of this before, but it's mainly quantum computing, though. Is that
correct?
That's the basis.
Correct.
Of it.
So a normal computer works with on/off, zeros and ones, whereas the quantum computer is operating at the quantum level, and it's tapping into the fact that you have superposition, where it can be 1, 2, 3,
Quantum
or 4.
superposition.
Yes.
So it's so that's basically that things and objects are essentially people in a sense.
Well, they can be in
different spots, right? They react to the same.
Yep.
Stimuli, right?
Correct. And it's pretty wiggy to get your head around, but the point is this, that the qubit, they found the qubit didn't work because it would be running, and then somebody would walk by this computer and it would shut the system down. So they realized they had to isolate the qubit from human awareness, human consciousness. So what they did was they lowered it into a tube and brought it down to close to 0 Kelvin. And then that worked. Okay, so essentially what that means is you have a human consciousness vacuum, or a human consciousness black hole at the center of this D-wave computer, and out from that point, and the thing is tapping into the different dimension. Okay, so it's a totally sci-fi thing, and that's the epicenter of all the Mandela Effect reports. Isn't that crazy?
That is pretty crazy. So it sounds like there is a lot of what's going on with the Mandela Effect is rooted in the quantum level of activity, the unseen level. So
that's the most objective evidence that I've been able to find. That report is pretty fascinating.
Sure, and you're talking about the consciousness impacting it. I mean, I think that's something. I've had this discussion with modern day quote unquote philosophers. I have some of which are my family that teach in various universities around America. But they like modern day science and philosophers, they take the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics and throw it right in the garbage. Really? They're not even looking at this kind of. They think it's complete nonsense. They teach that's what's taught on universities. Wow. The quote unquote philosophies of sciences, and I think there's a lot to it. So I think, and that's kind of some of the ideas that I have around around Mandela Effect, is the kind of retro causality aspects of quantum mechanics, and as you pointed out, the quantum superpositions. Where, because that way you can have things at a different place or time, right, that are impacting, which I think that's kind of, from my understanding of what you're describing with some of these biblical passages being changed, that's kind of what it almost would have to be in place, is not only just the quantum superposition aspect to it, but the retro causality aspect to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about what we think we're experiencing, because what people can't really understand is that when we recognize something's changed, like Grand Central Station is actually Grand Central Terminal. It's always been that. Or
is that real?
Yeah. I know that is. Yeah.
Cliff Notes has always been Cliff's Notes.
As a guy named Cliff that owns it, like Cliff High's Notes?
Yeah, like Cliff's Notes. It's like possessive. And all these things. Sex in the City was always Sex and the City. Smokey the Bear was always Smokey Bear. Of course, Mirror Mirror on the Wall was always Magic Mirror. So what my point is, when we recognize one of these things and then we look at the original trademark, we go back into history, it's a new timeline. Okay, because in other words, it didn't change yesterday or a year ago, and then before that it was Mirror Mirror. No, it's always been Magic Mirror in this timeline. So I'm like, well, where did my timeline go? So the best explanation I can give is that they've somehow are editing a new timeline into our timeline. So now we have a different past, or
seamlessly. Without any,
Yeah, which is so wiggy, but it's like what you've seen in 100 sci-fi movies at the same time. Or we're shifting between parallel universes, which would really present the most probable explanation. For instance, I just heard this one. A very good person that I know goes to a Sunoco station in his town for 10 years. And one day he shows up and it's now an Exxon. And he's like, wait a minute. How did they change this to an Exxon overnight? So he goes in and he talks to the manager, who's a different person. And he's like, when did you become an Exxon? And she said, well, this has always been an Exxon. I've worked here for 8 years.
Wow.
All right. Well, how the heck?
That's creepy. That's a creepy conversation to have.
How did it would only make sense if everybody is shifting to a different Earth where that always was an Exxon, versus you're in the same Earth and the Sunoco morphed into an Exxon like in a video game, because now you got to answer, well, where did the people come from? That's too bizarre.
Exactly.
But it is happening. Like another friend of mine, he is he examines oil pipelines. So he always goes on the same route every day, every month. And this one route, he goes out. He says, John, I've been doing this for 15 years. I have been 100 times down this road. He said, today I drove down there and there's a cemetery and a whole, like a neighborhood there. And I was like, he's like, what? So he pulls in and the neighborhood is old. It's been there for 10 years or 15 years. And the cemetery's been there for 50 years. And it was never there.
Yeah, that right there's got to be some really that's got to really mess with someone's mind right there,
bro.
That's a little bit more, a larger scale situation than simply a passage in a book changing, right? Like,
yes,
that level of Mandela effect. And I'm not by no means discounting it. I mean, but what you're saying as far as the shifting of complete almost Earths or timelines, I mean, it almost seems like it could be like an ethereal shift, because most, as quantum mechanics claims, everything we see as far as matter goes is not matter anyway.
I mean, do you guys remember what the Monopoly guy looks like?
The guy with the monocle?
Thank you. Everybody remembers that he had a monocle, and he never had a monocle.
Daddy Warbucks, right? And that is his name?
Yeah. And I looked at every version. There was 4 different changed versions, and going back all the way to the beginning, he never had a monocle in any of the versions. And I grew up playing Monopoly. I remember as a kid, we had to buy another game because we wore the first one out.
Nice.
And so,
you can't find any monocles, huh?
Nope. And everybody remembers the monocle. And Fruit of the Loom logo, there's no cornucopia. It's just fruit by itself. It was in that tube thing, right? The fruit, everybody's got underwear. Come on, man. And inside this tube is the fruit. Well, no, it's not in the cornucopia anymore. It's just fruit. And people are like, get the heck out of here.
I definitely remember the cornucopia.
There you go.
I mean, the one with the monocle looks right. It looks right.
Of course it does.
I mean, it looks so ridiculous without the monocle.
The dude on the right is like, no way, bro. No way. Pay rate.
He looks more like the Pringles guy, I feel like, on the right.
And now people will always jump on this one. Always. And they'll say, well, I can clear this up, John. You're just confusing the Planters peanut guy with the Monopoly guy.
Sure.
All right, so let's say you're right. Am I confusing Mirror Mirror on the Wall with the Planters peanut guy? Okay, no, obviously not. All right, so you show me.
And
you go
Mirror
find
on
the
Wall
movie.
What's that one often conflated with?
What's that? Wait, JJ, I think you froze up.
Oh yeah. Yep. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Say what you said again.
What was? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Oh man, my internet sucks.
I got you. We hear you.
Yeah, we're back. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
what was the mirror on the wall one? I like that's a good example because that one seems like another one where everyone seems to remember it one very certain way, and it's apparently not that way.
Oh no, she always said magic mirror on the wall.
Magic mirror on the wall. Okay, that doesn't sound right to me at all, and I think that one seems like a very telling example.
Right. Right. Everybody remembers mirror, mirror. So my point is
Sure.
this with the Planters peanut guy. I mean, if I had a dime every time I heard that, you'd have to produce, if you're going to apply the implanted thought theory to the entire phenomenon, you'd have to have a surrogate example for each of these false memories or altered memories. So, for instance, you have to be able to produce a movie that's not Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, where there's a woman in front of a mirror saying mirror, mirror. That would be the one that confuse us, right? But you can't produce that. So your hypothesis is a Hail Mary guess with no evidence.
Sure.
So be quiet. Okay? This is what I do for 8 years now. Right.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, most of these examples, they seem to be like, I don't. You tell me since this is the stuff you deal in, John. But the question I guess I have is, are there any examples that are not as stacked to one side or the other? There's more of like a 50-50, like, you know what I mean? Like the 50% of the time they remember one way, 50% of the time they remember the other way instead of more like a 90-10 type of situation.
The only one that comes to mind is a scripture where half of the community remembers light and the other half remembers life. So Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's what I remember. And then the other half remembers light. Otherwise, usually there's consensus within the Mandela Effect community. Like everybody remembers the lion laying down with the lamb. Everybody.
Sure.
But it never said that. It always said the wolf will lay down with the lamb.
The wolf will lay down with the lamb. Huh?
Isaiah 11:6 says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. And I mean, you got figurines, you got tapestries, you got bars and pubs called the Lion and Lamb. There's even a ministry called the Lion and the Lamb, for the love of heaven. And I called them up. And this is what happened. I called them up. I was like, hi, I just wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about your ministry. I'm so excited to talk to you. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so would you tell me how you ended up naming your ministry? Click. She hung up on me because she's getting hammered with people calling her, trying to get her. Now, this is wigged out. Like, where is she in that? Like, if she named her ministry Lion and the Lamb.
Lion and the Lamb, right?
And then, but then the always said wolf. Is she from another universe or I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah, why did her sign? Why did her organization not change? Right? Yeah.
Here's one. All right. So my people blank from lack of knowledge is a very familiar scripture, and most people will answer it the same way. They'll say, "My people perish from lack of knowledge," but it's never said that. It's always said, my people are destroyed. Guess what? You can go to Amazon, and there's at least 2 or 3 books there called My People Perish for Lack of Knowledge. So the guy
it came
writes...
up immediately when I Googled it, too.
Can you pull it up?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. But I'm saying, like, as soon as I started typing in people perish, that phrase, lack of knowledge, came up.
Right. So, but if you go to Amazon and you put that into the thing to buy the book...
Sure.
There's books for sale. Now think about that. I've written 2 books, and I paid the first one. I paid somebody $2,000 to do the editing, and the second one I ended up doing it myself with AI. There you go. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Now, do you know the impossibility of naming a book based on a scripture that doesn't exist?
Yeah, we got some dates here too. Yeah, looks like this happened back in 2016. This was published.
There's no possible way that a Christian author.
There it is.
That's Hosea 4 something. I forget what it is.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Because when I started typing into Google, I just typed in "people perish," and it came up for lack of knowledge. But yeah, the first thing that comes up as the first hit is my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. That's what it says now, and that's in every version. That's a
Right.
universal.
Yeah, Hosea
change,
4:6.
Right. So at this point, I think everybody listening can agree that we're not just pulling stuff out of thin air. We're not a few crazy people in our mom's basement and being amplified by the internet. This is a worldwide phenomenon that is growing exponentially. And I'll tell you another thing. I did an interview with a guy, and he's a friend of mine now. His name is Dr. Paul Grafton Holt. I'm telling you, this guy has 4 theological degrees, including a PhD in theology. So this guy is not a knucklehead, biblically illiterate. Oh, he's just confused because he's biblically illiterate. He's written 12 books that are theological academic books. Some of them are used in Bible colleges as curriculum. And one of his books is called The King James Bible and the Quantum Effect. So this guy is at home.
Interesting.
He comes across a video like mine, right? And I mean, he's just like this theologian in Europe. And he's pretty renowned. And he's reading the Lord. He finds out that the Bible's supposedly changing, and the thing that he did was the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this daily bread, and do the rest. And forgive us our, what do you remember?
Trespasses.
Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. You win a new car. Tell him what he's won, Johnny O. Well, Nick will be driving the new Dodge Stratus with plush Corinthian leather and rack and pinion steering. Trespasses. Okay, that's what the theologian guy says, and he opens his Bible and it says debts. And he's like, get out of here. He starts looking at his Bible. Huh?
It's got to come down to money again, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. Well, he gets his wife and he says, honey, go ahead and recite the Lord's Prayer. And she says trespasses. So this guy's Superman, all right? Super Bible guy. And he's like, I don't understand. And she goes, let me go get grandma's Bible. It's up in the attic. So she goes up because the human mind is going, there's got to be an explanation for this. It's just a Bible. We got a hold of a rogue version. That's what they're thinking.
Sure, copy.
But they think if it's in grandma's Bible, that's been up there for 100 years, it's really changed. So they go get grandma's Bible, and guess what? It says debts. And I'm telling you, this guy on the spot made the decision that the Bible is supernaturally changing. And you can hear my interview. I'm like, wait a minute. How did you just leap over 20 years of being a theologian to think the Bible's presto magico all of a sudden? He's like, I know my Bible. I know my Bible like the back of my hand, and this thing changed. It's not it was never trespasses. So that's pretty powerful evidence that we're not knuckleheads talking about this.
Sure.
I mean, you know what's interesting? You know how many places or like organizations or things actually will recite that though, or other like I know like Alcoholics Anonymous will recite that. So they've been reciting it wrong the whole fucking time too.
Oh, really? That's a phrase they use, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, people try to suggest that, like they'll just try to suggest that somebody misquoted it 50 years ago and it went through the whole world like the telephone game. That's all they got.
I on that exact note you just mentioned, I saw him in our conversations preceding the show before we scheduled, or in the interim of when we scheduled this, John. I saw something, and I don't know how long it's been around for Mandela Effect. You might be familiar with it. It was a Christmas song, Mandela Effect.
Oh, I saw it.
Frank Sinatra, I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Oh, that's it. I'll be home for Christmas.
Yeah, here I'll play a clip here.
Oh, you got it? Yeah, please, because I don't. Yeah, remember.
I got a clip here. Yeah, because I remember it the exact same way the guy in the video remembered. I was like, this is weird because it's a really iconic Christmas song.
You can play it?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Okay, I'll cool. Yeah. I just saw this the other day. I was like,
new Mandela Effect for you. I'll be home for Christmas. You can blank on me. What's the word?
Count.
Go ahead and listen.
You can count on me. That's what I remember.
Right, you can count, right? That's what I remember as well. You can count on me.
Yeah. So what is it
Nick,
now?
Is that what you got, Nick?
Yeah, I'll go with that too.
All right, let's
My
see.
final answer.
Tell me if you remember it differently.
No way, man.
You can plan on me. At no point in time did that song ever say "You can plan on me."
What?
Yeah, I only remember it as "You can count on me," and I'm a pretty big Sinatra fan. In fact, I mean, I've interviewed Sinatra's old writer here on the show, John Barber.
What?
Great comedian, funny dude. You know, we've actually talked about some Sinatra stuff in this conversation. So I feel like I would remember that was a Sinatra lyric that said plan on me.
I mean, people have certainty about stuff. Like, you know, I've lost my keys. I mean, I get it. You can forget stuff, but at a certain point, you know, like with your own name, there's certain things where you're like, I'm sorry, but there's no way. He never said plan.
Right.
Here's one.
Right. It doesn't even sound right.
Do you remember the Russian scientist Pavlov? He did this experiments with the dog where he did something.
Sure, Pavlov's dog. Yeah.
And then he fed the dogs. He did something, then he fed the dogs.
Ring a bell.
Remember, what did he do?
Ring a bell.
Nick, what do you think? Do you remember that?
No, actually, I don't remember that. Say it one more time.
All right, so he did something, and then he fed the dogs. He did something, and he fed the dogs. And then what this test showed was that he could then do that thing, and they'd start salivating because it created a neural trigger, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
He said he rang a bell.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, I thought it was a bell, right? Yeah.
All right, well, look it up. Just Google what did Pavlov use with the dogs? This one blew my mind.
There was salivate even when he wasn't bringing them food. There was an accidental discovery.
This one does.
It says bell, like a bell. It says Pavlov. Yeah, hold on, I'll bring it up. This is the Google AI response. This is the Google AI. So if you want to talk about Mandela effects, I think the AI response is probably up there. But yeah, it says right here, Pavlov rang a bell whenever he fed the dogs.
Well, that's either residual evidence or.
Well,
oh my gosh!
it's the AI response.
All right, here's one below that. One below that says Pavlov called the dog's anticipatory salivation psychic secretion. Putting this information observes Pavlov presented a stimulus. He used a metronome, and then gave the dog food. Oh. So this is something we see a lot. Let me go to Simple Psychology, see what they're saying. They got a bell.
What's it? I've heard the term metronome, but I can't. Is that little like sound musical device?
Well, it's a timer. You use it when you're practicing an instrument, but
right, you got to tune it. Right.
That's so weird. Well, what we've seen is that sometimes when changes take place, they're not complete. There's still remnants of the way that we remember it as it's switching over, which is pretty bizarre. But then there's what we call flip-flops, and this seems like it flip-flop because I researched this one and I couldn't find any reference to the bell when I looked it up, and now I can, which is really...
This one right here says, for example, in Pavlov's experiment, the sound of a metronome was a neutral...
There you go.
Neutral stimulus initially, or neural, I guess it says neural. Must be supposed to say neural. No, neutral stimulus, okay. And it did not cause the dogs to salivate, as it did not cause the dogs to salivate.
Do you remember the movie with what's his name? Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, and she shows up for the first time, and he says,
"Fava beans."
Hello, hello, Clarice. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
He never said hello, Clarice.
What's he say?
Oh man.
I forget. He says hello, I think.
Just hello.
Yeah, and Mr. Rogers never sang the song the way we remember it. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. He now says, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. It's even hard to say. It's so obvious. I mean, once you go through these, some of them, you'll remember Bragg's apple cider's always been Bragg apple cider. Depends undergarments has always been Depend, no S. See, that one's strong for me because I remember you can depend on Depends. Well,
sure.
That was their logo. That was their slogan. Well, that doesn't work because you could depend on Depend. It doesn't work. And this one's really strong. Stouffer's stovetop stuffing has always been Kraft stovetop stuffing. Stouffer's has never existed. And let me give you incredible evidence. I actually went to this guy's. What's that?
You can't be saying that.
Stouffer stovetops never existed?
Correct. And this guy.
You're about to fuck my head up with this one if this is true.
There is a guy. He's in Massachusetts, and he owns a software company. They provide the bookkeeping for food vendors. All right. And the Mandela Effect messed up his inventory. Like Stouffer's ceased to exist. And then all of his customers are calling him because it messed up their inventory. And he had to publish a notice for all of his customers that it wasn't them. They were spending 20 to 30% of the customer service time dealing with Mandela Effect questions.
What?
All right, let me read this. This agenda is all about getting people to accept virtual reality, which has been what they have been pushing through theoretical physics and science. Is this a government psyop theory? Here I am.
I think so. That's kind of how I perceived it. Yeah.
Right, because that's one of the 14 objections. It's a government psyop. But I'm not putting words in the person's mouth. Maybe they could post a response.
Sure.
If you suggest it's a government psyop, you still have to explain how the government did this, because what we're experiencing is pretty profound, and you have to explain how the government was able to go into homes and replace the VHS tape so that life is like a box of chocolates is written on the box, but it actually says life was like a box of chocolates.
Sure.
So the government would have had to been able to go into every person's home that had one of those and replace it with the PSYOP version, which of course is impossible. So it's not a government
I would agree
psyop.
with you. I would agree with you there on the impossibility. And as I'm still trying to process this
there it
stuffing
is.
mystery.
There it is.
Come on. Fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Never existed, bro.
Stovetop.
All right, here's a cool one. This one's really cool. You guys heard of the Great Wall of China, right?
Sure.
Did you ever hear of the Great Wall of India?
No.
Go ahead, pull it up.
On.
Go ahead and Google it. This is crazy. And when you get done Googling the Great Wall of India, Google the Great Wall of Pakistan.
Holy shit! There is a Great Wall of India.
Come on, man. Let me see it.
This is crazy.
I want to see it.
I've never once heard of the Great Wall of India.
Me neither. And what am I? I'm 60, man. There's no way I could go through my whole life and never once heard of the Great. Now, granted,
the second
Great Wall
longest
of China,
continuous wall in the world. It's not a small wall.
The Great Wall is like 16. What is it? It's like, I forget how long it is. It's 10,000 miles long or some crazy thing.
Is it really? Holy smokes! I don't know how long it is.
Massive. Yeah. So compared to this thing is dinky, but still.
Yeah, it's over 5,000 miles. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this doesn't really compare, does it? At 36 kilometers, what is that? Maybe 100 miles?
Yep. Something but then there's another one, the Great Wall of Pakistan. Look that one up.
Great Wall of Pakistan.
Yep.
A lot of great walls they're inventing around here. It sounds like.
I got a few of these. Let's see the Great Wall, and then I got a few more that'll blow people's minds for sure.
You got a Great Wall of Sinda. Is that what it's called? SINDH.
Yeah. There you go.
Racket Fort.
Yep.
Yeah, this is quite a structure.
How could you not have ever heard of this thing?
Yeah, that's pretty elaborate.
All right. Have you ever heard of?
Got the same kind of like style too, right? Going up to the mountains with the same kind of walled structure. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Wow.
All right, have you ever heard of penguins living in the desert?
I'm sorry. What was that, John? I'm in awe with the Great Wall of India here.
Did you ever hear of penguins that live in the desert?
No.
Oh,
Go ahead and Google that one.
Desert penguins.
Desert penguins, baby. Here it comes.
No, I googled desert penguins. We don't want to look at that.
No.
We don't want to see what that looks. You don't want desert penguins. Holy smokes! Peru's desert penguins. I've never heard of desert penguins. Nick, have you heard of desert penguins?
no.
I feel like, right?
I
feel like if you try to convince me of desert penguins without me looking at it, I'd be like, oh, I'm not high enough for that.
You have to be living under a rock, man.
Right. I thought I'm guessing these people or these live in doesn't look like a cold environment, right? These are warm weather penguins.
All right, look up Mike the Headless Chicken.
What?
Mike the Headless Chicken.
Wow.
Pull that one up.
Mike the Headless Chicken, a male Wyandotte chicken that lived for 18 months after he was beheaded. Come on. How's that happen?
There's a statue to this guy in front of this restaurant. It's in like Cincinnati or something, and they cut his head off, and he lived for 18 months with no head.
Look at that.
There he is.
I've never even heard of this.
How is that possible? How could you live without a head? And how could you have not heard about Mike in the first place?
Yeah, it really has no head. Yeah, you're right. Well,
there's a few of these. It's too hilarious to even believe.
Wow. This was happened in 1945, it says.
Have you ever heard of black chickens?
Black chickens?
I think so. You may have actually.
Nope.
There's black chickens, and there's
they look weird too. Like they don't look right. Look like someone spray painted those things right there. Like this one right here.
Right.
Like someone spray painted.
Well, they're all black. Their bones are black. Everything about them is black. And then you can look up rainbow mountains and rainbow forests too. That'll blow your mind.
Nope. I'm back.
There's so many of these that, that there are things that you would really know about if you weren't living under a rock. And it just, after a while, when you see them, how about the Easter Island statues? So, the statues that are on Easter Island?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, so put Easter Island statues with hats. Put that into Google Images.
With hats?
Yeah, Easter Island statues with hats.
All right.
Into Google Images.
Come on. They look ridiculous. They look ridiculous.
Let me bring them up so we can see.
Yeah, they don't even look right. They do not look right at all.
Oh, you got to be smoking something to see that.
Right?
I mean, really?
Come on.
They've
ridiculous.
always been there. They didn't just discover them. It's always been like that.
I've never once seen a hat on those things. I've seen them where they're buried into the ground up to their neckline, and they
right.
dig away. You can see the body, but yeah, you do the next excavation, you can see the body. But yeah, I've never once seen these hats. And they look so funky too. It looks like a upside down pot, like a flower pot or something.
Here's a cool one. All right, pull this one up. 666 cold medicine. Armwith says never trust a guy who wears a funny hat, right?
Yeah.
666 cold medicine.
Yep, I see it. What is it?
Can you imagine the decision to go ahead and to name it 666? Like,
right.
Does anybody read the Bible over there or what?
Not a great marketing strategy, or maybe it is a great marketing strategy. I don't know, but yeah, it's 666 cold preparation.
It's hard to believe, but
Yeah, I mean, it says it was made in the 1940s. It's presumably, you know, folks are just as probably if not more apprehensive around the 666, you know, symbolism at that time.
How about, well, let me do a couple more. How about Rainbow Mountains? Now, all I'm saying here is it's possible that some of these could slip past your radar, but at a certain point, you're like, how could I be living as an adult and not ever have heard of this ever? Like, this is the first time I'm hearing about them. Well, it's because
I like to feel like I'm pretty well read on a lot of subjects, John, and you're definitely stumping me with a couple of these here.
Yeah.
I've never heard of the Chinese Rainbow Mountains.
Chinese Rainbow Mountains. Give that a try.
Yep. I got
Did
that
you find
right
it?
here. Yep. 1 second. The Rainbow Mountains of China are Earth's
There you
pink
go.
palette.
Now, I'm telling you for 100% that this is the first time that people, your listeners, some of them, probably most of them, the first time you've ever laid eyes on that in your entire life. And I'm just here to tell you
I've never seen anything like this before. Yeah, it's a pretty wild landscape.
Yeah.
Do they claim what caused this to change colors? Is it supposed to be just dirt or sand?
It's from another Earth, so I don't know the backstory. How about Moses with horns? Go ahead and put that in there.
Yo, imagine someone bringing you here and like they got you tripping and you have no idea you're about to fucking
right.
You'd be like, "Yo, the fuck is that me or is that real?"
If you were on acid, you mean?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like that, be like, "Yo, let's wait till this motherfucker sees this shit."
This one's cool. Moses with horns.
Yep, I got them coming up right here.
Oh yeah, we had American Zombie was showed that on the show when he was on. Statues of Moses.
Yeah. All right. So supposedly, now again, I'm in the Bible, right? I'm in the church 40 years. I'm not like sitting on the pew. I'm up on the platform. I'm in the ministry. I've never heard of Moses with horns until about maybe 3 years ago when I was started getting into this.
Like cat ears on there, right? Like he's wearing like a furry costume or something up there.
All right. Well, supposedly this comes from one version of Exodus 34:29, the DRA version, which I don't even know what that is. And it says, "And when Moses came down from the Mount Sinai, he held the two tables of the testimony." That's changed too. It should be tablets. "And he knew not that his face was horned."
Really?
So that's a Mandela Effect Bible change. And then supposedly in this timeline, Michelangelo jumps on this and he creates this masterpiece showing Moses looking like the devil with horns on his head.
Yeah, with any other Christian iconography, I feel like anytime anything's connected with the horns, that's the devil.
And I'm like, no. Okay, no. Period. I'm here to tell you. I mean, I'm not an expert on Michelangelo and art and Renaissance and stuff, but I'm like with Moses. I'm like the Bible dude, right? I'm like, there's no way this guy had horns in a Michelangelo statue. Not on my watch. It's crazy town.
Yeah, because obviously the passage would be taking place at a significantly different time period than when Michelangelo actually crafted that sculpture.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, again, changes that temporally speaking are occurring at significantly different time periods, but seem to be happening seamlessly, kind of in a fluid revision of our timeline.
Yeah, that's the part that's so wiggy. Like we're living through these changes because we're still experiencing changes ongoing. We keep finding new changes in the Bible. So we're trying to figure out like, for instance, there were 4 things that we've seen switch and then switch back again. We call them flip-flops. It's one of the most compelling evidences that we have. So, for instance, we're watching everything and all of a sudden the whole community's buzzing with the fact that Flintstones lost its tea. I'll never forget it. I woke up and everybody was like texting me and stuff. Have you seen the Flintstones? It's now Flintstones. And I'm like, get out of here. I grew up on the Flintstones. That doesn't make sense. Well, we do our research, okay? And so we looked at the original trademark at that point in this thing, and it was always Flintstones. There was never a T, which first of all makes no sense because everything is rocks. No. It's bedrock, Barney Rubble, Mr. Slate. Flint is a stone, okay? Well, we went to the Walmart and we looked at the Flintstones lunchbox, and there's no T on there. I'm standing there and I'm like, where the heck am I? What is this? How is this possible? Well, this is the mind blow. 6 months later, we wake up and the T is back, bro.
It flip-flopped.
It changed back again. Now, there was 3 more of these. One of them was Houston, we have a problem, became Houston, we've had a problem. And then it switched back 6-8 months later.
We have a problem.
It's back again. It's the way it's always been. Then Tidy Cats became Tidy Cat, no S. And I remember that one. I went into a pet store and it was Tidy Cat with no S in the store. So this is not Photoshop tricks, please. Okay. And then I asked the guy, hey, did you know that this is Tidy Cat? Wasn't it always Tidy Cats? And the guy was like, oh, I didn't notice. Well, this one switched back. Now it's Tidy Cats again.
Sure.
And it's not, listen, it's not the company changing the name because we do our research. All right. The company.
They're not marketing schemes to try to sell more products.
It's not
clever
that.
Marketing schemes.
We thought of that. It wasn't that. All right. But this is the one I wanted to get to. Chuck E. Cheese became Chuck E. Cheese's, which doesn't sound right. I have kids.
No,
it
doesn't flow well, does it?
Now, here's the weird part. When I was in that first change, when it changed from Chuck E. Cheese to Chuck E. Cheese's, I have a picture of Wikipedia during that time frame when we were in that first change that reflects the timeline in that time period. The image that I have on my computer with a timestamp shows the Wikipedia timeline in that first change. It now no longer makes sense, but it stayed on my computer. That image stayed on my computer. We call it residual evidence. And the timestamp that my computer put on it is impossible because it shows when they changed the name in like November of 2017 and the timestamp is like March of 2018, which would have been impossible. But I was in a different timeline, bro. So I got hard evidence myself that I was in a different timeline. And nobody can tell me nothing. Nobody can tell me nothing, bro.
So do you think when these incidents occur, are everybody in that same timeline, or is there a subjective nature to where some folks may like are we living in like 2 simultaneous realities where
That's
some
a great question.
One while the other ones are perceiving the other, right? Because it seems to be and I agree with you. There seems to be some legitimacy to some aspect of reality that seems to be shifting. So I wonder, does it shift for everyone simultaneously, or is there a dispute in the system? Is there? I will say yes, that does happen, but it's very rare because we've done polls. I've done many polls. Sure.
And we're looking for consensus from the community. So what happens is, generally speaking, the entire Mandela Effect community shares the same memories. However, once in a while, you'll have someone that jumps off, even though they share most of the same memories as the community, they have this other memory. So I'll give you an example. This one girl who I knew, she swore up and down that when she was in Bible school 20 years ago, there was this big debate about the wolf laying down with the lamb. So her anchor memory was that her Bible always said wolf, whereas everybody else, it always said lion. Sure. All right, so it's kind of like the way we picture it is everybody's on this river, and we're all going down this river the same direction, and we all have the similar memories. But once in a while, certain individuals will just jump off the raft and go down this tributary on this one memory we call it a reality bubble or a time tributary.
Okay.
And it only applies to like one thing, not everything. Because on the rest of the things, they're in sync with everybody. It's really weird. All right, so wait, bring that post up, the one you just had, JJ.
This one right here?
Yeah, so this person says, I think Mandela effects are the signs. Oh no, the other one, it was a different one.
Okay, well, while we got this one up, John, what do you think? I thought this was a pretty interesting
Are the
comment.
signs that Revelation speaks of that things will happen and people will become confused.
Is that kind of the impetus behind some of the activities you think they're driving this?
Well, that's definitely a confusion is definitely part of the devil's strategy with us. That's what all this UFO stuff is happening. It's to try to bring fear and confusion on people. But there was one before that.
Of God, I assume in that UFO business.
There's a very strong narrative that's going to come to humanity very soon. That the ETs are the ones that created us. If someone doesn't hit on a Mandela effect, they are NPC. No should chaff from the wheat. If someone doesn't hit on,
I think probably separating the wheat from the chaff.
I'm not sure what his point is, but there's a lot of people. It's not the majority; it's a minority. But there are some people in the Christian Mandela effect community that believe if Christians can't recognize that their Bible's changing, that they're not even saved.
Really?
All right, Spiritual Gangster says the weirdest one to me is the Fruit of the Loom logo. Cornucopia disappeared and the company denied it was ever there. That's true. That's a really strong one for a lot of people. Here's another really strong one. This one will blow you away. Johnny Carson. Okay, what's
Johnny
the guy's
Carson, yep.
What's the guy's sidekick? He was a Publishers Clearinghouse guy. Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon, yeah.
And Ed McMahon worked for what? Publishers Clearinghouse, right?
Right. Handing everyone the big check. Knocking on the front door with the balloons. I got the big check. Congratulations.
He never worked for them. He never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. He never gave out the checks. Now, that one is super strong for a lot of people because there is a ton of residual evidence where Ed McMahon is giving checks to people. It's in a bunch of sitcoms. Johnny Carson's that he made. Actually, it's just so obvious. It's something unexplainable. There's actually, how many people are in the Jackson 5?
5?
There's 6.
It was almost a joke, right? With Ed McMahon, right? I think I cut out there, but basically it became an ongoing bit, just in humor, like hey, Ed McMahon's going to come by your house with a check, folks making that kind of joke or referencing TV shows.
That's like a whole icon in our lexicon. Ed McMahon and checks, and there was another company. I can't remember what it's called now.
America's Family Publishers.
There you go.
Yep.
And does it say he worked for that one? I can't remember the story now, but
yeah, I think that's what they're claiming here. Let me bring it up. It's an older image, so it's kind of fuzzy, but there it is.
There you go. Right, American Family Publishers, and he never gave out checks with that company.
Nope.
So this is a great example where AI or whatever is creating this always creates this backstory. So there's just enough there. If you want to jump off on it and not believe it's happening, you can. But this is all manufactured, right? Here's one. Spell the word judgment. Spell the word judgment.
Judgment.
I've seen it spelled 2 different ways because of tarot cards.
How would you spell it,
really?
Nick?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the different Judge meant, but I think it is spelled differently, though. I've seen on tarot.
Well, most people remember it with an E.
I mean, you know what? I
was wanting to put an E in there, yeah.
when I covered the gematria, like the numerical value of tarot cards and stuff associated with them, I actually spelt both of those. I added those because I was like, I don't know which one to use because it's spelled two different ways on tarot cards.
All right. Well, there's a bunch of different words that are spelled differently than the way we remember them. Judgment is one of them. But then my point is that people will say, oh, well, I can clear this up. That's how they spell it over in Europe, and it came over here in the 70s. And I'm like,
that's the British version, right?
First of all, how do you know? Like, that's just in the ether, and you're just getting that from the Google demon.
The Google demon, right?
Secondly, no, because I didn't spell it that way my whole life. All of it. So there's this whole avalanche of articles that start out saying it's commonly it's a common misconception that you spell judgment with an E. So there's like thousands of these articles saying it's a common misconception now. And this is AI trying to explain and give people plausible deniability so they don't have to believe that the reality is morphing, because the devil wants this to remain a secret. He doesn't want it out. He wants people to have enough proof where they'll deny their conscience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Question every aspect of their own decision making.
Absolutely, because it messes up your conscience when you violate it. And I can tell when I'm talking to Christians about the Bible. I mean, the things that are in their Bible now, we didn't even go through a lot of them. There's a lot of heresy and biblical paradoxes in their Bible, and they don't want to admit it, so they lie to themselves.
Sure.
It's crazy town, man.
I agree with you. It's a lot of stuff that's going to take in when you're trying to I think reality's it's tough enough for a lot of folks to try to discern reality from a day-to-day, not like from a day-to-day perspective, but I'm saying discern fact from fiction in our current era of reality, right? Like we're in an era where it's like almost a post-fact era of society, where people want to make facts, however they want to make them. There's not like an objective truth. There seems to be less and less of or more and more folks trying to make less and less objective truth to a fact. And it's almost at a perfect time where if the devil is trying to confuse folks through the Mandela Effect, it's the perfect time to execute that plan when everyone's already having enough trouble as it is discerning fact from fiction.
Right. It does throw a monkey wrench into a lot of content creators' formulas. Like one of the most recent revelations that was a huge shoe to drop was the idea that we're actually living in the period of time after the millennial reign. So in the Bible, there's a scripture that says, after the millennial reign, Satan will be loosed again for a little while to deceive the nations.
Oh.
So most Christians think that the tribulation is about to happen, and then the rapture is going to happen. Well, what I believe is that already happened. It happened 70 AD. And the millennial reign actually happened, and they called it the Dark Ages. But it actually was when all these incredible buildings were built. All over the world, there's buildings that were supposedly built in a couple of years without power tools. The stone masonry buildings, it's like the pyramids, right? Do you believe the pyramids were built by slaves with ropes and pulleys?
I mean, it doesn't seem probable any explanation I've ever seen for how they've been built.
No. So there's all this evidence that there's 1,000 years missing from our calendar, and the Dark Ages was actually the millennial reign. And the proof is the melted buildings, the mud floods, the orphan trains, the sane asylums, and then there's a bunch of scriptures. One of them is Revelation, where it says, talking about Jesus is leaving, right? He's going to be crucified. He's going to go up. And it says, every eye will see him, even those that pierced him, when he comes back. Well, that's the people that crucified him. And then in the gospel, Jesus goes, there are people standing here that'll still be alive when I return. I don't think you could be any clearer than that. Well, that was 2,000 years ago if he hasn't, if tribulation. So there's a lot of evidence to support this narrative, right? Well, here's my point. My point is that if we're living after the tribulation, then there's really nothing on the eschatology map of what's coming. So what's coming could be a time of renaissance, of prosperity. Because that's what, if you think the tribulation's right around the corner, then it's going to be hard for you to have any hope about Trump coming in or anything. But if we're after the tribulation, you might be looking at a time where, it's going to get bumpy for a while, but then they're going to kick out all the junk and the tyranny, which is what they're doing. Stop the wars, stop the poison food, stop the murdering us with all the fake medical things and this, just all the junk that we've been watching with 10 million illegals coming over the border. Wouldn't that be nice to have and get rid of the IRS? That's what he's talking about doing.
I think there's a lot of these changes that are going to be happening. I don't think it's all talk.
It's incredible, man.
Whether or not he achieves 100% of his goals, that remains to be seen. But looking at the way Trump operates, I expect him to achieve the vast majority of those goals he established.
No doubt. It's pretty interesting times to be alive, for sure.
So you think that this potentially? I'm not familiar with this era of that speaks of the Bible where Satan rules the earth again.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
It's an interesting thought.
It's really crazy. It's taken a.
Is that a Mandela effect? Did that get Mandela into the Bible?
No, that was always in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that too. Yes.
It's an obscure scripture. I mean, in all the 40 years I was in the church, I never heard any serious preachers talk about it. Never.
Sure, I'm not familiar with any sort of sermons on the topic.
No. So it is. Let's see. It's Revelation 20, verses 1 through 3. After the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be loosed out of his prison and go out to deceive the humans who are not yet born into God's kingdom. That's a weird translation. It's actually Revelation 20, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from his prison to deceive the nations. So that's all we're told. It'll be a period marked by deception. Well, that doesn't preclude having a renaissance of prosperity. I mean, I got a website now where you can go and pre-order 0-point energy generators. There's no moving parts. It doesn't require any fuel. It's just a box, and it sits there, and it produces all the energy you need for your house. 0-point energy.
How does that work?
It works like a circuit does. It works like a circuit between on and off, but between this dimension and another dimension. It's a Tesla invention that was suppressed.
Yeah, interesting.
So that
I'm familiar with the Tesla coil. I mean, it sounds like it has some general functionality like that.
I mean, free unlimited energy.
Pulling the power from the
exactly
from the ether.
Yep. That would change a lot. I mean, free unlimited energy for the world would change everything, if you think about it.
So
and they took it to J.P. Morgan.
Buildings?
He brought it to J.P. Morgan, and J.P. Morgan said, "Can I put a meter on this?" And he said, "No." So they, Tesla ended up dying shortly after that. Now, what's interesting is that once Tesla died, the government sent in Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump, to look over Tesla's materials because he was a scientist. Donald Trump's uncle was the scientist that the government sent in to review Tesla's research, and there was 20 trunks, but when they came back, there was 3 missing. So a lot of people believe that Trump got the time travel technology from Uncle John. And the proof of that is Ingersoll Lockwood wrote 3 books at the turn of the century. Thank you, P. Thomas. You beat me to it. The last president is one of the books, and in that book, this is uncanny. There's so many things in there, but
it really is.
He used the term. His Secretary of Agriculture's name was Pence in the book,
right?
And then if you look at the picture, the first book is The Amazing Adventures of Baron Trump, and the picture.
Yep.
It looks exactly like Baron Trump, man. I mean,
I agree.
Literally
it's pretty
looks
wild.
just like him. So, so what the heck? Yeah, pull that up. And if you put a picture of Baron next to that, I'm telling you, it's the spitting image of him.
Sure.
And then
in
that book,
before he was 6'9", he definitely had. When he was a smaller
Yep.
child, he definitely had that rounded face appearance.
And the guy that is Baron Trump's guide they go to Russia of all places, and there's a portal there, and the guy that guides him is Don. And then in the third book, Don lives on Fifth Avenue, and he runs a very unconventional presidential race and wins. It's uncanny.
Right. Which is exactly where Donald Trump lives, in the Trump Tower, right on Fifth Avenue.
So this is why I actually have a little hope that maybe Trump is not a bad actor. It's not the false light narrative, that he's got a hold of this this time travel technology, and he's basically got all of the bad guys over a barrel, and he's like, I'll go back in time and kill your father, and you'll cease to exist. I mean, it is possible. It's possible.
It's him doing the Mandela Effect.
Huh?
He's doing the Mandela Effect.
It could be. He could be pulling the lever. Except the thing about the Mandela effects is they're not random. You know, they're not, especially the Bible changes one. They're not just random gibberish. They're by design. So I see the devil's fingerprint on this, and I see that God is allowing the devil to do this. So it's definitely malevolent, but that whole thing with Ingersoll Lockwood is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as John Trump goes, I mean, if you want to find a scientist in American history that would be involved in this kind of level of, cutting edge, unheard of technology, it would be somebody like John Trump, who was the longest tenured professor at MIT.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's trippy, man.
So I mean, as far as the best and the brightest America's produced, as far as scientists go, he's up there.
Well, for the last 7 years, I've been watching what's called the white hat narrative out of the corner of my eye, and very skeptical. And they're talking about Nasera and Gesera, which at the time 6 years ago was completely far fetched. I mean, Nasera Gesera is like everybody's
what
debts
is that?
are Nasera and Gesera. It's a
I've never heard
national
those
economic. Terms. I forget what it stands for.
It's like the Golden Jubilee type of situation.
Oh yeah, all the debts wiped out.
Yeah.
Everybody gets universal income.
Everyone gets a Lambo.
Well, to the max. I mean, it's like heaven on earth. Well, now all I'm saying,
socialism.
I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not saying that I believe in Q, but I'm saying that what the white hats have been saying is going to happen is happening. You can no longer say Q is not true. What you have to say is Q exists, but maybe it's the false light narrative. So in other words, you got the Democrat and Republicans are two wings of the same bird. So really, since after JFK, it didn't matter who you voted for because the central planners controlled both sides, right?
Sure.
So you have possibly have a similar scenario with Trump. You've got supposedly this battle between good and evil where Trump has all these good guys, Vivek and Elon and all these good hard chargers, and they're going to come in and vanquish all this tyranny against the bad guys. Well, you may still have the exact same uniparty. Both Trump and the bad guys are still on the same side, like the snake eats itself. That what's the name of that, Nick?
Ouroboros.
What is it called?
Ouroboros.
Yeah, the Ouroboros. So you have the snake eating itself right now, but you might not have that. All I'm saying is you got to keep your options open. Because if
I
Trump
think he makes
has
some good
time
points.
travel, right?
He
He
makes
could have
good
the
points with
time
Team
travel
Trump.
technology. What's that?
It's very possible. It's very
Yeah.
possible. I mean, you're making some good points with Trump's changing the game. I mean, as far as the Q stuff goes, I mean, the new FBI director is pro Q, Kash Patel.
Jesus Christ,
Bro, he's a bruiser, man.
this fucking country's
Oh,
gonna
he's no joke. He's got a pretty.
Wait, what did Nick say?
I said the country's gonna turn retarded now.
It's what?
They're gonna turn retarded if the fucking guy's a Q fan.
What do you mean?
I don't. Oh no. Well, you said somebody in the government is a huge. What did you say?
Kash Patel, the new FBI director, but he's got a pretty. He's got.
I wouldn't consider that a good thing, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen, I guess, but it's a good thing if everyone who diminishes the idea of Q is like the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff. You know, people are Nancy Pelosi's in a lot of trouble these days. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pike for her.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is the narrative behind Q is simply that Trump and the military are in control.
Sure.
And there's 400,000 sealed indictments and all these people are going to get arrested. Well, that's happening is what I'm saying. So whether you think Q is good, is true or not, is no longer really an option because it's unfolding in your face.
Well, that was my point with Kash Patel. Is it doesn't matter if his Q is real or not. He's a man with an extensive record of prosecutions. He's going to prosecute somebody. You know, people are going to get prosecuted,
right?
Whether or not it's the people that folks want to get prosecuted, that may be a different story altogether. But Kash Patel is he's a very serious man with a very serious record as a DOJ prosecutor.
Right. What I'm saying is like the Q narrative. One of the results of the Q narrative is going to be that the IRS goes away. Now, do you want the IRS or not? That's my point. I don't want the IRS.
That's a great example because nobody likes the IRS, right? Regardless of political ideologies. You're like, no, the IRS are terrible.
So what I'm watching is the fact that Q and Trump and the military is no longer a fantasy because basically what people are saying is Q isn't real. What I'm saying is, yeah, it is real and it's happening and it still may be bad for humanity. It still may mean that we end up, in a COVID camp, even though right now for the short term, what's happening is going to be freeing us from tyranny. Like Hitler, for instance. When Hitler first came into power, the German people loved him. He was doing phenomenal things for the economy and for the country. And so the people rallied around him, but he ended up bringing them into a maniacal, he was an evil leader. So you could see that with Trump, where they're doing all this great stuff, and then all of a sudden, all of that's turned on all the people. So
look like a Handmaid's Tale in a few years.
Say it again.
I said I think it's going to look like a Handmaid's Tale in a few years.
What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Handmaid's Tale. It's basically like people within inside the government started overthrowing certain things and taking control. Yeah. The government fell, and then a religion kind of took over instead. But it just seems, the things with Peter Thiel, just like funding all these people in that party. It just seems like something shady's going on.
Doesn't it seem like Elon is the president? He's like overshadowing Trump.
Well, did you see yesterday there was somebody recommending him as the Speaker of the House?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be interesting, right?
Apparently, that's legal.
It
even
is,
though he's not an elected official. Why can an unelected person be the Speaker of the House? I don't understand that.
It's a great question. Yeah, I wonder if that's ever happened before. But I looked into it as well. It is certainly legally, technically speaking. But yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense in the sense of a free nation, right? Having some unelected official in such a powerful position.
Let me see if.
Well, I think a lot of the stuff going around Trump right now, the way I view it is there are a lot of reorganization of power elements in politics and society, but it seems like it's largely focused on the intelligence feuds in America between the U.S. Navy intelligence surrounding Trump and the CIA. So most of Trump's closest associates are all U.S. Navy intel, from Steve Bannon to his communications directors, to his chiefs of staff, to his PR guys like Jack Posobiec.
All right, so Article 1 of the Constitution states that the House of Representatives shall choose the Speaker and their officers. It doesn't specifically say that it has to be an elected official.
Right. Because there was a whole push a few years ago to try to get Trump elected as the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I remember that. Right.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is if I had to choose between Trump and his little posse and Kamala, I would not want Kamala.
I would choose Trump too. I didn't vote, so I can't.
I think Kamala might actually choose Trump instead of herself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all right. She probably voted for him.
Right. She's like, I suck, so good, vote Trump.
Yeah, I don't even want the job.
I mean, it's so obvious that they're just raping the country. Like I watched the press conference with that girl, and the guy says, he goes like this. So let me get this straight. The government can send money to Lebanon without Congress, but it can't send money to the people in North Carolina unless Congress approves it. And she walked out. She couldn't respond to that one. It was so obvious.
Mitch McConnell.
Man, people are really getting to the edge with the money going to all these countries. Ukraine's getting billions of dollars, and they can't help these people in North Carolina. It's criminal. Mr. Sentinel says, vote nobody.
Yeah, right. None of the
That's
above.
what people
That's
are
like
like,
that
man.
old
Like,
Richard Pryor bit.
People are just fed up, man. We're just so weary of just the orgy in Washington. That's what they're talking about. Vivek and those guys are talking about moving the. First of all, they're going to gut the place, 70% gone, and then they're going to put the offices in like Fargo, North Dakota. Okay.
No, I'm into that plan. I think they're aiming for Iowa. Yeah, I'm into that plan. That's a great plan.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Because all these people in and around Washington are not going to want to work for the government if they got to live in Fargo. But all the people in Fargo will. Here's a stat for you.
Sure.
Listen to this. Out of the 10 zip codes, the 10 highest per capita earning zip codes in America, 9 of them are in and around Washington.
Yep.
The other one is Silicon Valley, and then 9 are in and around Washington. Washington is a giant vampire squid sucking all of the wealth out of us, and it employs over 2 million people if you include subcontractors and stuff.
Sure. Now, I worked at headquarters for the Air Force at D.C. for 6 years in my military career. That I spent 20 years in the MP service for the Air Force, and various points in time I worked at headquarters there in D.C. and I got to see the inefficiency. There's nothing but inefficiencies in government. So when folks like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon are saying that 1% of federal employees are actually going to the office, I believe it. Like, it seems crazy, but I believe it. Like, it's that level of inefficiencies. Yeah. So here's a good comment, John. Have you seen some of this stuff, or maybe heard myself or Nick reference some of these things before? This Knights Templars, this is something Nick and I have covered a lot.
When I saw that, I actually thought that may have came up with you and Headless, tell you the truth.
I was gonna say, that's what I was thinking, the conversation you, Headless, and I had on. So America was started by the descendants of the Knights Templars. Yeah, folks who started the Society of Cincinnati, is the secret society that started America. And so there does seem to be, like, so for example, 2016, Hillary Clinton has no Templar heritage. She is descended from the royal bloodlines of the United Kingdom, the crown. And Donald Trump there has Scottish Templar heritage through his mother, Clan MacLeod, and other nice. So nice. I think there is an argument to be made. These divisions with the Templar descendants, notably the Society of Cincinnati core group, and then the folks like the Clintons, or even like the Bidens, representing these European interests and royalty.
I like that. That fills in a gap for me, because that's what I've been saying, is that what we're watching is turf war, different factions of these bloodline families. Like, because for me, it seems very unlikely that all of the attacks on Trump have been staged, because that's a lot of people's belief is Trump is a shill. He's not really coming to help us. He's just part of the same narrative. Well, I find that hard to believe. Okay, because
I find it extremely hard to believe.
There is a organized evil that attacks good. So, for instance, I started praying for the sick on my YouTube channel just recently, and they banned that video. So I got censored. They called it medical misinformation for praying for the sick. So my point is that that's a very low level example of the system persecuting me because I'm doing good. So, and I'm not a shill. Okay. So at some level there is censorship and all these things. But what happens is as you move up the food chain, most of us believe that once you get to the higher levels of government, nobody's good and everybody's a shill. Well, it's possible that we're both right. So what Trump might be is a white hat shill, not a black hat shill. So in other words, to take on what you were saying, he is actually fighting against these other factions, like the Rockefeller dynasty.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Bush, Clinton, Obama, or the Rockefeller dynasty. They're the most anti-human. And maybe Trump is a part of a different faction that's fighting for the turf. He's not, so flawless. He's perfect and whatever. But at least he doesn't want us dead, maybe. He's not as anti-human. Who knows?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like the Federal Reserve is a good example that it was started by the Rockefellers. Rockefellers financed these political dynasties as well, such as the Bushes, the Obamas, the Clintons. Sure, and it's they're obviously a great example of the people that don't like America. I mean, these are factions that have had some very ardent anti-American interests and policies for many years. So when those people hate Trump, it seems pretty obvious to me they're at least not on the same team.
Well, we'll see if he gets in. It looks like they're ratcheting up the chaos. California just announced a bird flu epidemic.
Do you remember the George Bush #1 funeral with all those envelopes? They've never been effectively explained. That's a good example of the
seen pictures of it. It says,
I know about that. You're right. We never heard anything about that.
No.
Well, I've seen pictures. It said they have all the information. I'm sorry. And it was signed George Bush.
Interesting. #2?
No, the dad that died.
The dad? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was the dad that died.
Well, because George Bush, George W. Bush, #2 there, he looks like he's got a guilty look on his face when his wife's reading that envelope. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's like, I'm just a dumb old Georgia man. I don't know what's going on. I don't have an envelope in my letter. I don't have a letter in my he opens up his whatever, the funeral guide or whatever, the events of the funeral there, and he's looking for his letter and it's nowhere to be found. Because I think someone like Carter, he was more or less just a useful idiot of sorts for that same kind of Rockefeller, trilateral commission. Because again, that's Rockefeller as well, with the Kissingers and everybody else there that were the national security kind of state aspects of those administrations.
Sure. Well,
John, I think this might be a good time to wrap it up. I appreciate your time. We've had a lot of good discussions here, I think, today. Is there any? Can you show us your book again, and tell folks where they can?
Yeah, the book is available on my website. It's called the Mandela Effect: Supernatural Bible Changes and the Doctrine of the Preservation of Scripture. My first book is called The Conspiracy Theorist Survival Guide. It's a guidebook for persecuted truthers. So if you found out the moon landing is fake and the earth is flat and the 9/11 was fake, but your loved ones didn't. I mean, my wife divorced me after 24 years of marriage. Sure. And that's actually very common. That finding
common
out
truth or realization with their family and friends no longer want to have any dealings with them, huh? Yep.
So if that's you, go over and download the book. You'll find a lot of validation there for your journey.
Nice.
It's on wakeuporelse.com.
Right? In the first book, right?
What's that?
You covered a bit of the Mandela effect in your first book there as well.
Not really. I mentioned it. I think I didn't really get into it a lot there because I knew I was going to write the second one. But I do go through a lot of stuff, but it's not really trying to convince you any of these things are happening. It's actually written for people that already believe it's happening. But the people that are important to you in your life don't believe it's happening, and that creates a lot of relational problems. So the book is kind of like a shoulder to cry on. It's validating your perceptions. It's not your fault that there's all these dead bodies behind you because you started questioning officialdom. The 9/11. Sure. I'll tell you one that really broke up a lot of relationships is the vaccine. That really broke up a lot of families. I mean, I'm talking divorce, kids don't talk to dad, mom. Boy, it's bad. It's bad. So that's what the book's about.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, John, I hope you come back here and join us again in the future for conversations. I definitely enjoy these
yeah, man, it was great.
Conversations on our reality, questioning our reality.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Nick, good to see you again, my friend. God bless you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, it's just that stuff you presented with the Mandela Effect. That was some weird stuff, man. I really do like.
What does magic think about ceremonial magic and Mandela Effect? Where does that cross over?
I don't know. It's something I have to think about for a while. Yeah.
too heavy of a question.
I think more people playing games, maybe. Believe it or not.
Sure.
Yeah. But no questions. Anything? I'll just promote the Occult Rejects on all major podcasts and Rumble.
What are you working on? What's coming up next on there?
Working on some stuff for I think Empedocles. Kind of been looking into some Crowley stuff. So I don't know.
Oh, speaking of that, Pete Thomas sent us some Crowley stuff regarding Untermar. I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
he was asking about that there in the chat. So let's look at that. No, that sounds like good stuff.
Possibly maybe some people involved with the eyeball too, more stuff like that.
More eyeball stuff. Nice. That is an interesting line of research you got going there for sure. And Operation GCD, I'm working on next coming up. I think the next show will be Legend of Abner Vance. John, you're obviously you follow politics. So what are your thoughts on the fact you never see Trump with J.D. Vance, my distant cousin J.D. Vance? You don't really see those two around. They did an appearance this last Saturday for the first time at the Army-Navy game, but since his appointment as the VP, he's not really to be seen with Trump. You see Elon with Trump all the time, but never really J.D. Vance.
I didn't notice that, but I'll keep an eye out for that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he kind of he's real tight with Peter Thiel. Thiel funded his hedge fund, his Silicon Valley venture capital firm. So I think he's got some interesting connections there. But my kind of what's that?
Peter Thiel's big into pre-crime too.
Oh, absolutely, with all of his AI systems for sure.
And the interesting thing is that the one way that Trump was arguing with the left about how he would handle gun control would be pre-crime. That's a little scary.
Pre-crime, holy mackerel!
That's a good one. So JD, my theory of how JD Vance got where he is today is that he and I both descend from a man named Abner Vance, who was a very mysterious character in early American, Revolutionary War history and immediately following. And but it's my contention or my point or my argument is that Abner Vance was actually the biological child of George and Martha Washington, and this is some of the secret society knowledge, and that's why folks like J.D. Vance have rocketed into the upper echelon of politics out of nowhere. Yeah, I've done DNA tests to support these claims. Like I have countless Washington kinfolk that I've plotted and mapped to show that this is the case. On paper, Abner Vance's parents, his father Matthew Vance, grew up with George in Frederick, Virginia. He was a few years older than George, and then Matthew married Martha Dandridge's first cousin. So they all knew each other, right? That much is demonstrable. However, what is not is not as easily as demonstrable as pointing out that they had a biological child and they gave him to their friend and cousin, and they took him to the furthest point west in America, the Cherokee Nation area of North Carolina, which was about the furthest west folks had settled at that time. So that's how and that's my opinion how J.D. Vance gets there. But yeah, Abner Vance has got an interesting backstory, which to in American history. But yeah, folks, and for example, folks like the Hatfields and McCoys are so popular because they're descendants of Abner Vance. So Devil's Anse Hatfield, the head of the Hatfield feud, he's the grandson of Abner Vance.
Interesting.
He's a Vance. So yeah, I think a lot of the reason why, because the Hatfields and McCoys, they weren't the bloodiest feud in Appalachia. They weren't the longest feud. They didn't have the highest, body count. But for some reason, they're the most popular feud. And I would assert the reason that is because that feud's descended from George and Martha.
Right.
Washington. Yeah, Washington was a ginger. But yeah, so yeah, good, great conversation, John. I keep an eye out for JD Vance and Donald Trump not being in the same location.
I'll keep an eye on that. All right, guys, appreciate your time. Hey, thanks for listening, guys. Take care.
Yep, out here. Thanks.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, but check your six. Look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.